Right on.
I gave you this shit, whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah, that's you. She said, I don't want no one touching that.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. That's
I'll
Dan.
sit in front of it. This is all nightmare, man.
And every once in a while you gotta do this.
I have no idea what that says.
If I could do like a wiki.
That's something that amazing. So where's Cody, man? We're still
He
waiting.
was here. Now he's here.
Okay.
Just made out Bill's on.
We're champions.
I haven't said, this is the first time I said.
So I was just talking to you.
Yeah.
Flashbacks. Yeah, that's flashback. It's small, but it's super tight. It's like really.
That's how Cincinnati Horror Hound is.
It's Horror Hound, yeah, I'll say.
It's good. And it's just like everybody just has that same kind of.
Yeah. Flashbacks are great because it's, so there's the show floor, and then there's screening room, and then there's, in between there's a bar. Which is because it hangs out that fucking bar. It feels like, remember like Chicago Comic Con circa, where they would all do it in the Hyatt, and everybody go hang out at the bar, and be like car tennis, and everything. It feels like that. It's like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
We go just a day, and there's so many conventions.
Yeah, I definitely do horror comics in general. Usually, man.
Me too. This is us trying to go Chicago.
Right.
Maybe it's
That's the first time we're doing it, so especially on free
Really
content.
cool.
It's Galaxy.
Yes, yeah.
Sure.
So they bought an existing one that was small. You wear a tattoo.
Yeah.
You're live?
We're live.
We're live? Okay.
What's up, everybody? Everyone out in the hallways, come on in here.
Your voice carries, bro.
Yeah.
Mine?
Why you got a mic? You don't need that mic.
Can you hear me now? About to say. So everyone, thank you for sitting in on the first panel. That was a very inspirational panel. I love that one. They told me to keep it lighthearted, and it was the exact opposite. It was very motivating, empowering.
That's how I wanted it to turn out.
Female power. So everybody, again, I am Cody James Lockwood, here, the hostess with the mostest. Thank you guys so much for sitting in on the panel number 2 of BillCon 2025. Super pumped for you today. This is freaking awesome.
Hell yeah.
Happy to be here with some very talented, awesome people.
Let's dare it up. There we go.
Damn!
Did you dap? Did you just dap?
Yeah. So, you guys know how to draw and create a background.
I'm feeling something. Can I do a quick audience participation?
Sure.
I'm going to say, what's the time? And then you say, it's time to get ill.
So let's do this a couple times.
All right.
What's the
I,
What's the time?
It's time to get ill.
What's the time?
It's time to get ill.
What's the time?
It's time to get ill.
I love it when Brian goes hip hop. That's just
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, man.
He's like a metal guy, but he goes hip hop really well.
I worked for Def Jam Records in the first year of their existence.
That's right. You know that.
I am a long-time hip hop fan.
It used to be boombox on the shoulder.
That's right.
I could see it.
And another, I used to break dance, but that's a different time.
Are there videos of you?
I wish.
Oh, man.
The third panel is Breakdancing 101, hosted by Ryan Polito.
Like, were you like the crack up the cardboard and go guy?
Yeah.
Hell, can you have?
Well, I went to, I mean, different panel, but I went to college in 1981 to 85, and hip hop was exploding.
Yeah.
And our campus was was like filled with hip hop dancers and stuff, so you could get in on it. There was a real big uptown downtown thing going on.
Yeah.
Much love among cultures in New York at the time. So yeah, it's just a hoot. Yeah.
If anyone can find those videos, put them on YouTube and take me in. That's what I want to
So we're live right here, we're streaming, so anyone out on the internet,
You can
I digress,
find
everybody.
footage of Brian Polito.
Yeah, breakdancing Brian Polito. The request is out into the world. Please find it. It'll be AI.
It'll be their heads and our names.
Brian, how many panels have you hosted? Because I know you're a very charismatic,
Countless.
I would imagine. And how many weddings have you officiated?
Several. It's true. I am licensed to perform weddings, and I have. One time I had to. A friend of mine handed me 9 pages of text that I had to memorize.
Oh, and you did?
I got close, but yeah, yes, I have married many people, even in conventional-like environments as well.
So
I've done mass weddings.
Get married?
That's amazing.
Another time.
So we're gonna talk about 90s comics, and then we're gonna talk about modern day comics as well. My first question for all of you guys, this is something that I was curious about. In your career, was the Bad Girl comic, was that your first initial project plan goal when you started to draw comics? Was it to do Bad Girl comics, or was it, what was your guys' first experience there?
We have to start with the grandfather.
Obviously.
Grandpa Brian. So I was doing one comic called Evil Ernie.
Woo!
Yeah, Evil Ernie. Evil Ernie was needed a motivation, and so I developed his idea of an ideal woman, Lady Death. And what's that? Correct. So not long thereafter, we put out a Lady Death comic. So that was February 9th, 1994. Now, just as luck and timing would have it, Billy Tucci put out the comic book She, and Harris Comics put out Vampirella. And in short term, these books all became enormously popular overnight. It was life-changing instantaneously, but it was the comics press who named them, quote unquote, Bad Girl. So as far as answering the why, I grew up in a household where it was very common to see a woman completely taking charge and running stuff. So it didn't seem unnatural to me, but I do remember at the time, people were like, this isn't gonna work, this isn't a good idea. You know, all the thought leaders are like, don't do this, don't do that. And, you know, I'm not really good for listening to people. So I just did that, and that seemed to start some sort of a trend that the press, not us, coined Bad Girl.
Well, because then how far after when you guys start this, then there's Witchblade.
Instant. Like
Yeah,
within 24
90s.
months.
Yeah.
So if we came out in 94, you know, people were jumping on it really fast. And as you know, there were probably thousands of creations, and certain ones stood the test of time, Witchblade being one of them. Yeah. There were definitely a lot of kooky ones too.
Yeah.
Josh?
Well, I was a teenager, like, I think I was a senior in high school, kind of when all this, where he was talking about it all hit. Does this work?
No.
Okay.
You want this?
No. Can you hear me okay?
Right, yeah. There we go.
Okay. And so I was looking to get into comics, and that all had to hit around that time when I was really getting serious about it. So, I mean, it was definitely an inspiration, especially to see, at that time, say, for example, Wizard Magazine, an indie could come out of nowhere and make the top 10 list. You know, you did. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a big inspiration, and Yeah, I wanted to do basically Evil Dead with the girl. That's basically where Metal 17 started. And so, you know, I guess whereas Slade is probably the metal version of Batgirl, mine was the punk rock version. So that's.
I guess I was the emo version. So I was, yeah, I'm the same. I was 17 when Evil Ernie came out. I bought it off the rack. I bought it from, you know, Eternity, the black and white comic. It changed my life fundamentally. Like that's the truth, because it was a huge influence on Hack Slash. I've told Brian this before, but the thing for me that really connected with the Batgirl stuff was that it was kind of goth and punk, and it felt, to me, it came on the heels of stuff like The Crow as well, which is not a Batgirl comic, but they were sexy, which at the time of the 90s, at that point in the 90s, like, you know, mainstream comics were sort of afraid of getting anywhere kind of sexy or dark or dirty, and so this was like a wave of stuff that felt like the things I was listening to, which was, you know, Joy Division and you know, and then Ministry and all this sort of stuff. These comics felt like that. So I think for me, it was more that the tits and the ass was important, but it wasn't the only thing, because also I also like The Crow, and that's all abs and pecs, you know. So there was just like an edge. Yeah, tears. But they had an edge, I think, which, you know, and then 10 years later, in 2004, when I did Hack Slash, that was the stuff that was the most influential to me. It was that the 90s Batgirl stuff, but also the 90s sort of Image Comics, like Savage Dragon or something, where it was just someone putting their id on paper. There was like, and to me, that's kind of the magic of comics, is you can do that. You can make something that is just, here's myself, and then just puke it out, and it's all these things, and you know, films can't very easily be that, and you know, TV can't very easily be that, but comics could. So that was the appeal to me, I think. You just like tits.
Yeah. Yeah, my version of 90s Batgirl and what became a Zombie Tramp was Grindhouse movies and stuff like that. I bought my first Evil Ernie comic from Brian himself at Orange County back in the day, a long time ago, and he sold these Xerox copied prints of Evil Ernie, and then there was like this image that I was like, what is this? You know, I think they were $1, right?
They were $1.
They were $1, and I was just like, I'm like, what is this? And he's like, this is Lady Death, and I'm just like,
Was that before? Was it from Eternity?
It was. I don't know.
Yes, that era was Eternity, so when we really didn't make a lot of money doing the Eternity comics, so the way I kind of like fostered some capital was we made $1 prints and $5 prints. And it was just cool splash pages of Evil Ernie. We'd go to a good quality Xerox place and sell them, and at the end of the weekend, they'll come around, leave with like $300, which was
huge.
Dude, it was like great.
Get that. That's amazing. That's great.
But yeah, it's just, it was a smart move, because like, you know, growing up, you know, like not a lot of money, I could get all that stuff. It was like $1 and all that stuff. But as I got older, I wanted to do animation and stuff, and I decided I didn't like to work with people. So I was just like, well, let's go back to my love of comics. And what did I love about comics? I go in the store, I'm like, I don't like any of this shit anymore. I'm like, what did I like about comics? And then I went back to 90s Batgirls and stuff like that. And I was like, if I make a comic, because I've always tried to make a comic, but I never finished one. But the only book I ever finished was Zombie Tramp. And so I was like, if I'm gonna make a comic, let's keep it with that 90s Batgirl vibe, but you know, we'll mix it with like horror slasher films and 1970s exploitation films. And then that's what it kind of mushed into. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Stuff that I love. I love
it's just
that
always a mixture of
Well, because like timeline-wise, we're actually kind of sitting in order.
It's like 2004.
0304, yeah. We're like in the same, and then yeah, so we're like shorter. Yeah.
It's 50.
Yeah.
Well, I love that we're talking about 90s Batgirls, but yeah, you guys both early 2000s. But I feel like it's grouped, you guys are grouped in that 90s, you know, because time isn't real, you know, like, you know, when we think about it. And
well, so the other side of that, though, when I came out with Hack Slash, it was derogatory. Like the reviews be, oh, this is kind of like a 90s Batgirl, but it was derogatory because the books, where Brian had said it, when they were really successful with their books,
Right.
and a bunch of people made absolute shit,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and so by the time we did it, we had to like try to redeem an image almost in a way, like that. No, you could do sexy comics that are good. There was like a
I see that.
there was like a dearth of stuff.
Yeah.
I think like the ones that came out that didn't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm always,
You and I were in that era. Like, we have to be like, no, you can do cute, sexy, dark stuff and not have it be exploited trash.
Well,
Which,
the other thing about that, I don't know if you experienced this stuff too, is that a large number of people that responded who were fans were female.
right.
And a lot of people,
yeah.
were saying, this is my first comic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was
different.
that was part of the reason to make Hack Slash was I would go to cons and there'd be goth girls. And I was like, nobody's making comics for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, when I started writing, I just, like you said, you're just spewing out yourself, it was, these characters internalize a lot. So I basically started making Zombie Tramp like a journal. Like it was just me just spewing about how I felt about life and how I felt about the world and what.
So she's you with giant cans.
Yeah, it's just like things that
Take it off your chest.
things that irritate me about people and everything like that, and that started that fan base because people feel the same way. Because I'm just being open and honest about how we feel about things, and everybody's started to get that cult following because they're like I really relate to her. But then a shocker for me was because I really want the stories to be good, they're sexy and cute and all that stuff, but I just want the stories to be good. But when I started touching on issues of high school rape or battered and abused women and all this other stuff, it started to get real because women would come to the show to meet me and they'd be shaking and just holding my hand and all these things that I wrote that I just made up in my head really happened to these people.
Right.
And then I'm just like, okay, this is kind of weird, man. Like I don't know, I just gotta continue making sure that these stories are like legit, man.
Authenticity.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I would say also with this type of material, it doesn't advertise that it's essentially completely and utterly anti-mainstream,
Yeah.
but it is. And it does appeal to people and really connect with people at a deep and profound level that the mainstream could not imagine.
Right.
So like, I hear exactly what you're saying. Like, I get a lot of that kind of stuff as well.
Like, I never wanted to write like stories where like, oh, this super powered guy who punches people and in capes and all that stuff. No offense, lady, yes. but I wasn't into that. I wanted that grittiness. Like when I read The Crow, I was like, this is it right here. And the biggest thing that inspired me about comics, I always drew comics when I was a kid, and I constantly was trying to learn from how to draw comics the Marvel way, and I would copy the muscles on my He-Man toys and all that stuff. But it's just when I went to the movies and I saw the movie RoboCop, and then that was it. I was like, this is a comic book. This is the exact kind of violence and kind of grindhouse feel I need in a book. And then from then on, that's all I was interested in, is anything in that kind of genre.
The RoboCop is also super subversive.
Yes.
It's not just violent. It's also like telling you, it predicted that we would live in a future taken over by corporations and that cops would be privatized and do the bidding of rich people. Like, you can get away with that when you hide it in tits and gore.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you do something that you're like, here's my pissed off view on things, but if you advertise as that, people might be abrasive. Like, but if you hide it behind these really sort of basic, sort of things that we look down on in society, then people read that and they go, oh, but I got a little message there too.
Yeah.
Also, here's a great axe.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And I never know if I'm writing a message. I'm just writing. Like we were talking about in the car the other day. I'm just kind of writing. Like,
But that's the thing with your guys' books, like all of your guys' books, I feel sex sell, right? Tits sell.
Yeah.
But then you look at the fan base and you talk to the fan base and the amount of people that read your books because it is inspirational. There's great storytelling in there, and there's always something good to take away. And on the cover, there's some badass titties, So for me, it was always that really unique, are you guys writing to sell the boobs, or are you guys creating for the story? And I always
You can't just sell tits because you can get them for free on the internet. So
how?
right, yeah. So you have to have something to it because If you just want boobies, those are really easy to get.
You see a lot of these Kickstarter campaigns and all that stuff getting into that real quick is that everybody's trying to sell, you know, sexy girl covers or whatever, and they're doing it via AI or via like just some crappy artist that only costs $100 or whatever. It's the thing is they can have all the nice covers they want and they're gonna make their money. But those people that bought that book are not going to come back because the interior sucks and there's no story. The story is like the worst thing ever, and it's just like it's repeat business to create create a world where it's the story is like really good and it draws you in and you can connect with those characters. You know, all these other people, they don't get it, and they just think that with sex sells we're going to put a sexy cover on something that's shitty. So.
But to remind you, those guys, those same people who just rushed in to try to make money off Brian and Billy, they fucking killed something. So you have to be careful with those shitty people.
Yeah.
Because they could kill it.
But they're not here anymore, and you guys are here.
Yeah, they don't stick around that long.
You know, speaking for myself, the whole, the sexuality part, it's just, for me, it's completely ubiquitous. It's never been calculated. This is just how I see the world.
Yeah.
You know, I come from a time where, women like to look like that. People, boys and girls like to look at women like that. You know, I like to look at women like that. You know, they're edgy. They take no prisoners, no apologies. So for me, it's not cynical. It's just like, and that there is that whole thing where some ladies also, they just like looking like that. And they're like, yeah, deal with it, man. Yep, I'm sexy. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. I just
Strong female woman.
Strong female who is cool with this sexuality and no apologies. They don't have any apologies, characters. I have no apologies. This is what's up.
No, I love that.
Said by 5 white guys.
Back when people,
not you.
Yeah, people.
I'm sorry.
When people used to review like
Spanish and Irish.
yeah, Mexican Irish right here.
Sorry. I didn't mean to white guy you guys.
I identify as
I identify as a man who loves
Titty.
Is bigger better?
maybe.
No,
Maybe.
Cassie has tiny tits. It's still popular. So.
It's so funny. The whole time working with Tim on Hack Slash versus Zombie Trap, like when I would show him covers, I'm like, here's a cover, just got done, here's a cover, just got done. And he's like, man, these people are really taking liberties on the size of Cassie's boobs, huh? And I'm just like, no, I told them, I go, it has to be.
Do we have an official
to,
size?
I'm like, I think it's large.
34 feet.
Okay.
It's full A. That's what I call
Full
it.
A?
But this is the only rule I
I don't
have.
know.
I have is I told Dan to do what the fuck you want. But I have a rule. For Cassie to stand out in this particular thing, the distinct character design is that she has small boobs, right? But he would give them to the artist, and it'd start out just fine, right? He'd be like, hey, it's on model. And the longer they drew, and the hornier they got, they'd just be like,
I think it's when they go to inks. When they go to inks, they're just like, fuck it.
yeah. I'd be like, take it down.
Yeah, I would say full A, man, because my opinion of what a B looks like on a cartoon drawing was not your opinion of what a B looks like. You're like, that's a C. I'm like, please. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, Tim was really easy to work with in that sense where he would kind of just like, yeah, it's good, but he would just like, yeah, it's a little bit too big, but yeah, it's okay, because that's his whole career. Like
alternative universe.
People trying to take liberties.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, people trying to take liberties, and he's used to it.
So I'm trying to rep for the small breasted girls too, right?
I just started going with the butt, man, and Cassie. Let's do a nice butt shot, man.
That's always fun. That's always fun.
It gave me good practice on my butt. I'm really trying to figure out
Good
butts.
butt's hard to do?
Yeah. Brian Maroglio is the butt master right now.
Okay.
If you ever get a cover from him, get the
Just
butt
butt.
shot. Yeah, he should have a sketchbook just called Just Butts.
Are you guys thoroughly enjoying this recent transition? And Brian, I think you might be the king of this. I know you still do direct. You guys still do direct, but direct Kickstarter versus direct edition. Are you guys? How do you feel about the Kickstarter as opposed to everything going direct?
Kickstarter, well, direct meaning the comics market.
Right.
Well, in 2014, I did an analysis. I called up all the top retailers in comics, interviewed them, got their perspective when I was going to go back into the game. And I heard their perspective, and I said, there's got to be a better way. And so Jimmy Palmiotti, a friend of most of us here, was doing some Kickstarters. And at the time, I think he was doing a Kickstarter about some chick with like lobster hands. And I'm like, and it was successful. And I'm like, I'm doing this. So we did our first kick in February 2015. We've done 45, 47 of them. And look, it's life-changing. We did $11 million plus on Kickstarter. It also fueled our direct-to-customer element of our business. We do 26 promotions direct in addition to any crowdfunding. And then we were audacious enough and crazy enough to leave Kickstarter essentially to make our own crowdfunding platform, Coffin Launch, which we've been on, and we've already done 2 campaigns. So it's utterly life-changing. The capital that we get from crowdfunding and working directly with you guys and gals fuels our dreams, gets to do phenomenal stuff like ILCON, in our case, have our HQ, which is magnificent, and everyone's always invited to come check it out. It's utterly life-changing. It changed the game up. Instead of being the person who's always wholesale, and eking out a living and trying to pay people fairly on books that you must sell to a distributor for 60% off the retail cost. And then you can't do smaller editions, all that kind of stuff. So life-changing.
Yeah.
You guys all. I personally, as a fan and a collector, like I love to be able to buy direct, from you guys. I think it's great for all of us, right? How many people here participate in one of these guys' Kickstarters?
Thank you.
I mean,
So here's the other question I have. So we do hack/slash Kickstarters for the hardcovers because they're very hard to do because it takes so long to get paid for that kind of book. How much of Kickstarter is you can sell books that people would feel weird buying at a bookstore from a retailer?
Oh.
This is not
I never thought about that.
It's not a shame
Because of the
at all.
I get
Right.
And
Because we live in America, it's a conservative country. People say they want certain things, but when you actually put them in a place where they go up to a counter and buy something. I know this because I do a book called Money Shot, which sells on Amazon better than any comic I have. But in comic shops, it sells less than Hack/Slash.
Right.
So, because people are like, well, I'll get that porn shipped to my house. So I wonder how much of the success of Kickstarter is because of, no offense, Bad Girls, because it's like people can feel comfortable living in a community that's non-judgmental, which them going up to a retailer and being like, here's my Avatar comics or whatever, sort of stuff that used to be
behind a curtain.
Right, exactly. Like, I wonder how much that is it, and it does seem to be a significant part because the successful stuff on Kickstarter tends to go that way. No one comes to Kickstarter with like, here's my story about how I escaped a fascist country and ran across borders, and you know what I mean? Like, nobody does that on Kickstarter.
I mean, in defense, seriously, there is a lot of that great personal stuff. Kickstarter's fairly robust, I would assert. I mean, we all probably see a lot of Bad Girl stuff or adult, but I mean, gosh, the breadth of what is offered and the successful is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say it's a fair range, but I would say it's concentrated on one side.
You can see it. So does anyone have any feedback on that question?
See, I have like the opposite problem of that. When I go to the local comic book stores in my area, they don't carry it.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the
Well,
problem.
that's what we're saying,
So
right?
they can't even have the option.
Right.
And I've asked for Brian stuff to be brought in and have been refused.
But
Which is
I-
ridiculous because they would be making money.
Yeah.
It's sort of like owning the supermarket and say, fuck no to eggs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I say about Money Shot. I can't sell Money Shot to comic shops, but I can sell on Amazon as a top seller. So there is a judgment on retail and comic stuff, which is bullshit. I think it's bullshit. I agree with you.
Well, then just the indie comics
Yeah.
get a bum deal out of that sometimes.
That's a bad
So they're
comic
not
shop.
risky.
It's also bad.
Well, the statistics on quote unquote back of the catalog comics being carried by stores is very low. Like I would say at the height, even in the 90s, we were carried maybe by 300-400 shops. And before Diamond closed, we could tell by the ordering that we're probably carried by about 300. So we were under no illusion that we were carried by 2,500 accounts. And that's just the reality, which also kind of made it easy to go to crowdfunding. But we did do, up until the Diamond demise, we did do comics just for the shop because I also believe that people are incentivized by their own convenience. So if someone buys at a shop, it's like, I'm gonna make comics for
And
Mm-hmm.
Peter
you.
Nail Cover was the first one I seen in a comic book store.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the comic shops, like, I ran a comic shop for 15 years, and I travel all over. I see comic shops everywhere, but it's a lot of just mainstream stuff. And I was in there. I read. We carried more Dan Mendoza copies than like Amazing Spider-Man because it's about. So talk to your comic shops. I know some of these guys would do retailer packages on their Kickstarter. So it's just those retailers, those comic shops, we have to let them know that we still want their stuff.
Yeah, because those stores are then leaving money on the table. They are telling people we only care
They
about
just say no.
superhero shit.
Yeah.
They are telling their that potential customers
Yeah.
So that's why I'm sort of where you are. This is like, well, I can't feel a lot of sympathy for you as a store if you're struggling and you won't order something that's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're also the pain, go die when you don't care about that at all.
Yeah, I used to care, and then I saw how many people didn't give a fuck. Like when the first Zombie Tramp, it was a digest size trade that we put together, and it was we self-funded it and put it in the Diamond catalog, and I was so excited. And so I would go to my local comic shop. This is in California. And I would show them the page, like this is my book, which, if you guys want to support, please, and order it. And I would go to all the comic shops and ask, not one of them fucking ordered it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it just kept going on like that. And for a short time, I knew the demographic kind of changed as far as, because Zombie Tramp did come up eventually, but the demographic of how people saw the stuff that we do as offensive was, for a short time, I moved to Seattle, and I lived there for like eight months or something like that. And I got there, and I said, I'm gonna go visit all the comic stores, let them know I'm here, blah blah blah, all that stuff, and introduce myself. But the first thing I would do when I go in, I wouldn't tell them who I was. I would just say, hey, do you guys sell Zombie Tramp books? And they would get offended. And they go, we don't sell that kind of stuff here. And I'm just like, I gotta fucking leave. So I left, and I moved somewhere else. And then, but it came to that thing where like, why am I struggling, and why am I trying to get these stores to buy my shit when I could just sell my own shit, and that's when it kind of changed for me on that stuff.
Also, you're selling direct. We know what we're paying for you guys.
Yes.
No upcharge. You get it. So I really appreciate the Kickstarter. My other question, next question for you guys, I know you guys are all story driven. Do you guys feel you are writing different or have to take more precautions writing from the 90s and early 2000s to today? Is there any extra?
For me, speaking for myself, one of the blessings I feel, and one of the ideas that I take on is, as a writer, I'm on a journey, and I'm going where I'm going. And it is my hope that you will come along for the ride. And if you've read Lady Death for 34 years, you can see there is changes. I will take her in paths and maybe into genres that you are not used to. And I thank you for it, because that's the thing that kind of makes it fun and thrilling for me. So I do not in any way, shape, or form presume what the audience wants. And respectfully, I say it's like, this is a journey that I hope that I'm going on, that I hope you want to come along with me on.
You write for yourself.
Yeah, a little bit. Don't try to pander. I mean, it's clear that I'm hyper responsive to customer. I think, Cole, you back me up on that, like customer service and stuff. But I gotta just tell whatever this story is, and let's see where the cards lie.
Do you guys feel you write any differently?
Yeah. I have to be. I think now I'm more concerned because of the current regime in power. Hack Slash has always lived in libraries, public libraries. Now I have to worry about them not ordering because Cass is bisexual. And now I have to worry about that. And you all have to worry about that. Because all of a sudden there's this, we don't do DII, we won't support LGBTQ shit. So even though the book is essentially, a sexy spank bank book for everybody, I have to worry about this now. And you do too. Because, this is what happens when there's sort of this reactionary moment. So I have to worry about it. I assume it's a part of all of our, the amount of kids who come up to me who come from some small town and go, I got the Hack Slash Omnibus from my local library. I'm like, really? You did?
That's great.
But that's going to end.
Sure.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is going to be over if we are not more sort of aware of what's coming.
I just write. Yeah, I write for myself. Since Zombie Tramp was the only comic book I finished, because I used to always make a character and write a story and never finish it, but I think Zombie Tramp was the first book where I just wrote it for myself, and so to this day, I just have to make stories that I'm interested, you know what I mean? And I think that we've found the fan base that likes the same stuff that I like. So
And you're 60 issues, man?
Yeah, we'll be on that I've worked on 60 issues because I left the publisher at 56, and I quit, and they went up to 83, I think, during my lawsuit or whatever. So when I got the rights to Zombie Tramp back, I started with 56B, which is kind of the epilogue story. And then, so now I'll be up on 60 this year, so just kind of taking it on.
Josh, you feel like you have to watch?
Well, I feel like I have kind of maybe the opposite problem that you're talking about.
Well, you and I have different politics, so this could very well be the truth. Yeah.
I'm talking more from the faith perspective. I'm an open Christian, so I have this weird narrow line that I walk where my stuff is too edgy for Christians, mainstream Christians, or maybe too faith-driven for the other side. So I get weird comments on both sides, but I try to just stay true to what I think and what I believe. And I love art. I'm very, I guess you could say, liberal when it comes to art. But I'm also open about what I believe. So I do the best I can to also tell a very entertaining story, first and foremost, and then whatever happens, whatever the reaction is what it is. So.
That's it. I have a question with it. Yeah. That's interesting. Because, I read that 17 when it first started coming out and it has that crochet. Yeah. Are there like the kind of book distributors that are open-minded enough to distribute your book through their stuff?
No.
Okay.
And you know what? That's fine because I'm not interested in the Christian audience. I'm not interested in preaching to the choir. I like being among people that don't think like me. I like having those conversations, and that's where I think, change happens. So interesting.
It's so it's so interesting. So when we did the women panel, it was they were saying a lot of similar things. They create for themselves, and they hope that what they create, that the fans and the population grasp and love. And it's really interesting to hear the same thing from you guys. You write and create for yourself first and foremost, and then hope that the community takes that ride with you. And obviously we all are, obviously you guys all, who's here from Michigan? Okay, more, yeah, I love that. How many people flew here? See, like that really shows you guys are doing more than just selling comic books. I know you guys know this already, but you guys really are touching.
Who drove 33 hours from California?
Yeah, okay. All right, my last question before we open it up for questions.
Someone had a comment earlier.
Yeah.
You, right there, sir. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I've got to be older than you.
You had asked about Kickstarter versus locals, and I've supported all of your Kickstarters, and I've also bought all of your books from Awesome Books to Comics in Texas. But I love my local comics, so I can't put my copy. But even the most recent Zombie Tramp hardcover that was allowed to be sold in stores, they didn't be sold.
Yeah, and even now, we offer any retailer wholesale, from our store, you know what I mean? And some of us take me up on it, some of them don't. They don't want to do the effort, I guess. But I see it pop up. I did a show in Cincinnati, Horror Hound, and right across from me there was a comic book vendor, and he had a bunch of Lady Death books, and he had a bunch of Zombie Tramp books, and he didn't know I was going to be there, but he backs our Kickstarters. He's a retailer, so it's awesome.
Well, the thing that always catches me up is this idea of comics, because comics is the world will tell you it's a niche audience, but I think it's probably not true. But that's how they think about it. But the thing that comics is fucked up on is that they think the mainstream is superheroes. And it's not, right? That is the very specific, weird niche audience. That's the niche audience. The real mainstream is all the other shit, right? Dogman and, Raina Telgemeier and Zombie Tramp and, Prime Comics, everything else. That's the real mainstream. And I don't know where this flip happens, if it ever happens, where people go, oh wait, I've had this shop for 40 years and all I've been trying to do is make more superhero comics. Yeah. And superhero comic fans, and at some point people are gonna go, yeah, we're interested in everything else. Right. So when does that happen? I don't know. That's the question.
Dennis Barger, I don't know if you guys know that guy. Dennis Barger has a comic book store.
About
an hour and a half from
Monroe,
here.
yeah.
He started up a YouTube channel, and it's very interesting. He has a couple, but this one is just about his store, and he breaks it down of how to make your store a success and stop buying these fucking superhero comics.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
He's a big supporter of yours, of all of you that we go in there and yes, there is superhero stuff, but there is stacks of like underground, independent, new stuff, old stuff, all the weird and
he quit Diamond a long
time ago.
Before they went out of business.
Yeah. So my last question before we open it up to any of the fans, we all love the ladies. Who, if you guys could draw or write any male-driven story, any character, what male would you guys draw or write?
Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, there you go. That's good. I mean, I do it all the time, but I guess that book I did, Local Man, that's like the only time I made up a dude. I never make up guys. All my books are ladies, but Local Man, I just do Local Man. That was like when I figured out how to do a story about how dudes are idiots, but also they're kind of, you can make them appealing. I have a hard time making dudes appealing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've written one book, like we said, like you said, it has a male hero, T-Bone Trouble. But
I love that book. That's a great. That's great.
If I could pick anything though, I would want to do a Star Trek book.
Star Trek.
Oh my goodness. What genre though?
Right. What one?
OG? Shatner style?
Yeah, I have to go with Shatner style.
If you could write any male.
Well, what would play to my strengths is Lobo.
Lobo. DC.
That's, and then I guess if I was going to stretch a little bit, I'd go Captain America. To write the heroic ideal, he's been my favorite superhero character for 50 plus years.
Mine too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a very OG Cap, so maybe those two.
Sweet.
Warlock. I mean, they'll go on, right? Like Jim Starlin riff.
Yeah. No Dragon Ball Z wouldn't.
No, it's
Street Fighter.
It's perfect the way it is. I'm leaving. If I was to write something and I would be left the fuck alone to write it how I want, it'd be Conan.
Yeah. Any questions in the audience for any of these? Fine.
What did you just say? Which one? I couldn't hear.
Oh, Conan the Barbarian. Sorry, I'm a mumbler.
Sort of along the lines of the superhero, are you having issues with like printing? I know that you've had to switch companies at one time for a whole bunch. Anyone else having issues with getting yourself printed?
I mean,
So far, the law, as far as tariffs go, is you can't tariff printed goods.
Okay.
so far, yeah.
So far.
So this is a pro tip for anybody who's interested. So it's true. We worked with a giant offset printer in Arizona, and an employee goes to content, and actually, I respect that. It's a $200 million printing company. They have giant corporate clients and like fun. But what I realized is, comic books, there's this idea that comic books are this special magical thing to print. And the truth is, they're actually not. So what I decided is I would find in Arizona an offset-based printer who was cool with their content and work with them to understand the printing of comics. And that's exactly what we did. So when friends come to me and say, like, should I print in Canada? Should I do this? And I was like, no, man, go find a printer in your town because printing comics, they can print it on the third shift, for example, if they're very busy. So that really solves the problem, from a content perspective.
The content perspective is crazy there.
It is crazy.
Because Money Shot, we can't print in the US because no one will touch it. I have to print it in fucking China, which is way more restrictive.
You're getting under the radar too, because they've been restrictive on our stuff, so we have to go to Shanghai.
Yeah, it's weird.
We had to go to Singapore on a book.
That's
Yeah,
what it was,
and it's because it was when we did Tells the Ill, that big fat book, and it was like they didn't want it, man. Like we couldn't do it in China, we couldn't do it in Canada, we couldn't do anything. And you know why? Because there's male nudity.
Yeah, there you
They
go.
had no problem
Yeah, male
with
nudity
female
is-
nudity.
It's the dom.
It's
That always-
one dom, man.
Who's printing like, like Hung Hog magazine, like the, gay porn magazine? Somebody's printing that shit.
Yeah, right.
Like, why am I the name? Come on, I do research. I just made that name up. That's a good name. You can use it if you want to do something. Hog Studio.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Brian, you've been referred to as the hardest working guy in comics. I want to know how you found the time to text me about the pop-up shop in the middle of the panel.
That's pretty, that's.
Hey, husband!
He just did this shit.
Multitasking.
It's called Klaviyo. It's a phenomenal email program, or SMS texting.
Now, my real question is, do you guys ever vanity search like on eBay to see what your comics are reselling for?
I do. I like to gander every once in a while. I'm like, I wonder what Zombie Trap's doing. Because I'll be like, I rarely go on eBay for anything, but once in a while, if I'm looking for like an action figure or something, and then I'm just like, all of a sudden, I'm like, let's just type in Zombie Trap. and
Yeah,
see
your
what it
books
is.
aren't cheap either.
Yeah, sorry.
You gotta be honest.
Yeah, I am kind of knocked out on that rare occasion. I'm looking around like we did a set with Jenny Frison a couple years ago, and that's just $1,000 for the comic book.
That's my sister-in-law.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. She's phenomenal. It's just
I have a
amazing.
question. I have a question. Back when everybody wanted to review comic books and stuff, what's one of the worst reviews that you've gotten, but you love that you got that bad review?
The best bad review I got was from a principal at a high school. If you ever make it out to our place, we have a museum, and in it is, this thing is under glass. And it's a guy principal who basically said, if I make comics like this evil Ernie, that I should seek professional help, and he did it so wonderfully, and I felt so honored by it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't get it. And it was very impassioned, it was, obviously it was a principal, great grammar, all that kind of stuff. But I was very mentally sick, I should seek help, I should have put this stuff out, I'm a light on the universe. But it just had like the wrong effect, because for a human being like me, it's like, that's like putting, coal in the furnace. It's like, all right, man.
Yeah, now I want to
Now it's
Mission
done.
accomplished.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I remember it was only 2 lines. The review was only 2 lines. So I remember the first line. I remember the second one though. It was, I want to punch him in the face.
How eloquent.
Yeah. When we did the Hack/Suicide Girls crossover, which I knew I would be shit for anyway, but there was a website I really liked called Comics Alliance that I would check all the time, but they did review that book, and they fucking hated it. They were like, so exploitive, and this is so gross. And the guy who wrote it, later, I was at a con in Myrtle Beach, and he was sitting right next to me. He's like, hey, I'm Chris Sims. I was like, oh, I remember you. But then we went out for drinks, and I forgave him. Now we're friends. But yeah,
My favorite bad review was someone saying that I'm the Russ Meyer of comic books. And I was like, fuck yeah.
That's a t-shirt. Write that down. Yes. Anyone else?
For whomever, do you remember the first time working with someone or working on a franchise or contributing in some way where you were so excited that it didn't even feel real, like fantasy coming true?
I was really lucky. So remember when in the 90s, Marvel was packaging Heroes Reborn?
Supernaturals.
Yeah, so I got so Marvel called us up and said, you can do whatever you want. We're going to pay you exorbitantly. And as long as, you get it all approved, it's good to go. So I came up with this concept called Supernaturals. I made my own Supernatural team. Jack-o'-lantern was the bad guy. By the 4th issue, I brought all the great Marvel monsters. And for me, it was just a love letter to everything that I love. But I felt like it was the great rock and roll swindle because they paid us. And we handed them the files, which were at the time was like this big, crazy external drive. We wrote it, they reviewed it. pencil, ink, letter, blah, 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 just handed the finished files and they printed it. So that, to this day, still is just a glorious experience where it's like, do whatever you want, kid. It's like, okay.
That's one of my favorite comics that era was.
That's very sweet of you to say thank you.
Oh, that's not even.
Right.
Ivan Reyes, Zatanna was it?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, look, search for it. Pro tip, I shouldn't tell you, the premium edition of #1 by Greg Capullo is a very rare variant from people in that who care about that. And that book goes for about $900 if you can find it.
Really?
It's ridiculous.
What about you, Josh?
I got asked to do some Twin Peaks artwork.
Oh.
It's one of my favorite shows.
Wow. Hell yeah.
So yeah, that was.
Wait, I've never
What
seen
was that for?
That was like some shirts and prints and stuff.
Oh,
Back
yeah.
when the show came back in 2017.
Yes.
You know what you did that I really liked when you did Monster High, that you did the whole book.
That's right.
You also that seems like the match made it happen.
That book is amazing, man. But for me, it's I never get asked to do anything, but so it's just working with these three guys that I've got to do books with all three of these guys, and it just keeps it indie. I dabbled in trying to work with people before when there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't want to do it. Like it was so amazing when I got asked to do a Red Sonja cover once, and it was the worst experience of my life. And same thing with Ninja Turtles. I was so hyped, and then they just gave me shit about everything. Like,
Dude, you too. I did a Red Sonja that it was just a nightmare.
yeah, it was the worst. And I'm like, what about all these Red Sonja covers from the past and all these amazing covers? And they're like, that's before I got here.
Did they tell you like you were off model? I got told that. I was like,
Didn't
Did
they
I
say
have
enough?
enough chainmail?
Yeah.
Story of your life.
Not enough chainmail and all these other things. Like they approved the sketch, they approved the pose, and then all she's like sitting on a throne of skulls, and she has like one leg up, and so she's kind of spread eagle, but she's like kind of sword in the middle, so she's kind of just lounging. And they approved it, and then all of a sudden, once it starts coming to fruition and it was colored and everything, there was like first I kept adding a chainmail to her whole like midsection, and then the sword had to be thicker to cover up that midsection, and then the top had to be just a super chainmail fest, and then they ended up just cropping it. And you don't even see the throne of skulls.
Yeah.
And by them cropping it, it looks more provocative. But it was I was like, I can't work with these people.
Still a cool
Well,
cover.
I'm the weird one then, because I've spent 20 years working on mainstream shit, and then I just do what they say, and then I turn around and use the money to make weird shit.
Yeah, you found the formula.
Yeah. I just did 5 issues of Red Sonja, and then just like, all right, here we go. And then I turned around and paid for the butthole shot.
It's true. All going to buckle.
Yeah.
When other publishers do basically imitations of your work, what's that like? Does that piss you off? Does it feel like imitation is a sincere form of flattery? How's that feel?
Are those like parodies or satire? Do you have an example?
I think comics is just all imitation and
I sent
Is that-
something I found on eBay called Tramps on Me.
Oh, yeah, he got a cease and desist.
So for you, it feels like a lawsuit.
Yeah, a lot of it does. A lot of it does, and in some cases, it's something where someone's trying something, you kind of looking at it, and you're like, oh, this is not going to go well for them. So you just kind of let it exhaust on its own. You just kind of leave it alone. Don't give it any attention and just let it die out. And that usually works too, where that person made no money on it because all the true Zombie Tramp fans or whatever, they know that's not real, and nobody goes down on it.
I always do that on the other side. When I see that shit, I buy a copy. Because like there was a beer made somewhere they traced a #image or whatever. So I just emailed them and said, you need to send me a 6-pack. Or like
Just a 6-pack?
Yeah,
For me.
or like I've seen that before. Like somebody made a miniature for a role-playing game. They just use Kazakh like it's a zombie game. I just said you owe me one.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck.
There's a guy on eBay. Real quick. He sells short boxes and he does all the artwork on it, and they're made of wood and everything. They're amazing looking, and it was brought to my attention, look at this guy's making Zombie Tramp ones and stuff like that, and I looking at it, I was like, oh, but they look so nice, so I'm not gonna bother. You know?
Just email him and say, hey man,
Yeah,
the guy made it. You owe me one.
I think I want to have him send me
Yeah,
some
yeah.
because they're just nice, man.
To answer your question, Kaufman Comics has a policy of being highly litigious. We do have people who very consistently cease and desist on all platforms available. If parody is possible, we'll observe it. We'll observe the actual project creator, and we'll see if it's worth litigating against them and making money on it. If we can't make money on them, we watch them, and we see if and when they will finally make some money. And the day before the statute of limitations is off, we will change their life irrevocably.
Very professional.
Love
Make your own shit is what I say.
Yes.
Can we ever expect a crossover from you four guys all together?
I'm not writing it.
I'll write that shit. Let's go.
Yeah. I'll throw 'em in.
It's like a Crisis on
Yeah.
Bad Girl Universe.
Yeah.
What would just be called All Out Giant Titty Attack?
I would buy it.
Well, because I do that one of the reasons I do Image Comics is, you know, like for Local Man or something, I'll just go, hey, Jim Valentino, can I use Shadowhawk? And be like, yeah, cool. And that's why I do it. That's like the reason I do it, because it's so easy. I would love to do something like that. Like that would be.
Okay, we can sort it out right here, right now. So you write it.
Yeah.
Who's fulfilled?
Well, let's co-write it.
Okay, well,
And that's how these
everyone
guys
gets
put
in
a
on
draw.
it. And then, yeah, we'll just figure out who's doing what.
Yeah.
So let's do a thing. You and I jam on a script, and then these two have to draw it, and it would be.
He's not gonna want to draw it.
You have to draw when Giant Tramp shows up. You have to draw.
So here's
it.
what-
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
What is it?
Where I draw all Zombie Tramp.
Just when she shows up, you draw
And
that.
then he draws, you know, I mean, we get an artist, an artist assigned to each
That would be so cool.
girl, and then they do, they're responsible.
Yeah, it's complicated, but it's-
Well, that's what we did Local Man. Now it's really easy to do because you just have a page on an FTP.
Yeah.
And then you just pull out a Procreate, draw your shit, and put it back up. And so.
All right.
If we can have,
When you did Lady Death versus Zombie Tramp, you had it on Still Hill.
Yeah.
So if y'all do a collaboration like I'm talking about, is there any way we can get it where Still Hill, Kaufman Comics, Image, and blah, blah, blah? Like
all the logos.
All of the logos.
Yeah, shit.
I mean, everybody, like, when we did the thing with Dan, it really was Dan's project. So if what we're saying here is like, we're gonna equally put in effort, then you just put your logos on the back, it's cooperative effort.
Yeah.
And then we kind of like, I guess between you and I, we figure out like, okay, who's gonna like, manage the creative element, you know, that part, and then who's gonna fulfill, but we can
Yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah, 'cause
Sounds
I don't
like
have
a
a publisher.
four-way we all want to see.
Yeah.
Do you guys wanna see it? What's the time? What's the time?
All right.
Let's call it
That's
good.
everything, guys. If you haven't went to their booths yet, go check them out. Get the wallets out. Let's keep this support going. I put it back over here. Thank you, everybody. The